for my favorite baseball team. You know, so whereas other guys were like, it's just kind of like, it's a good opportunity and I can make some cash and, you know, it's a stepping stone kind of thing. But, you know, like they didn't have passion for Sabbath and passion for Randy and Jake and what they brought to the table and the legacy of the music. Well, I think, you know, with Randy, with Oz and Randy, what they started, it was just like two instant classics, game changers out of the box. Then Jake comes in with Bark at the Moon, another epic. I mean, that whole record, Rock and Roll Rebel. I mean, I love that record. You're No Different. Waiting for Darkness. Also, the whole record's great. And then Ultimate Sin, Jake's crushing it on that, and Killer Giants and everything like that. And then it was at that point when I came in the franchise, just the New York Yankees, when Don Madden was in, just went into a nosedive until the '96 Yankees came back in, and it was World Series bound once again. But I did enjoy my time and my tenure, you know, wearing the pinstripes. But no, I think, you know, it was just my love of Sabbath and Randy and Jake and when I'm coming in, you know what I mean? Because I'm a fan of the music, so you know what I mean. So for me, it was just I didn't have to think, I need to kind of write something that sounds like an Ozzy song. This is what I love playing. We were doing Osmosis. We worked on that and that we had a blast making that record because we made it in Paris, a batch of it, and we were in New York, and that was a blast making that album. It was Geezer and Dean Castanova and Oz and Michael Beinhorn. And I had an absolute blast making that record. So I had a blast making all the records. You're around your buddies and you're around everybody you love being around and you're playing music. So, but no, when we made Osmosis, I was jamming with Guns N' Roses at the time because I knew Slash and Duff and Matt. But I never met Axl before, but I remember Axl called me and he was like, hey Zakk, it's Axl, you know, I was like, oh, what's going on, man? He just goes, you know, we were talking about guitar players, because Gilby wasn't jamming with him anymore, and I was just like, oh, okay. He goes, we just wondered if you want to get together and jam, and we were thinking maybe, you know, we could all have a good time and give it a shot. So I was like, all right, no problem. So we came down there and we were jamming and we were having a blast. So, but nothing was happening there. And then Oz was like, Zakk, are you going to be jamming with the fellas? Are we doing this thing? Are we going on tour or whatever? I was like, Oz, let me try and find out with the guys or whatever. And everything was just kind of like up in the air. So Oz was like, Zakk, I got to get somebody else. I can't sit around here waiting on you whether you're going to jam with the fellas or not. Right? You know, I was like, oh, it sucks. So that's when Joe Holmes came in. I'm buddies with Joe, and Joe's phenomenal. So Joe was jamming with Oz and everything like that, and then nothing was happening with Guns. So I was like, well, I got to do something. So you know, I gotta make pizza money. Yeah, the way I've always looked at, you know, my parents passing away, or you know, the way I've always viewed it, I just thank God for the time I had with them. Yeah, I never go, I got ripped off or I got gypped or, you know, whatever, you know, I never, ever. I'm always grateful. So, yeah, I just thank the good Lord that I had all that time. Yeah, I mean, actually, after the gig, we were talking, texting each other, and, you know, and I was like, Zakk, we got to end up doing another record, you know, like No More Tears. You know, when you were going through your Almonds Skinner phase, it was just like, it's heavy but melodic, you know? And I was like, all right, I just said, surely you must be kidding. He said, I'm not kidding, and don't call me surely. So anyways, we all love Naked Gun, come on. So, but the whole thing is, but no, I was like, all right, Oz, no problem. I just, you know, we'll get together, I'll just play a bunch of riffs like we always have and just go, I like that one not so much. That one I really like, whatever, whatever. And so that's where we were at, and then it was just like, and then I figured, Sharon, I just figured Mom would end up putting these, because the Back to the Beginning went over so well, and it raised all that money for charity. Maybe Sharon will put together, a Back to the Beginning once a year, do one in Brazil next year do it in Japan, next year do it in America, next year do it in Scotland, or whatever, Ireland, Australia, whatever, and all over the world. You just keep doing these Back to the Beginning because it's a big metal fest and celebration of Sabbath and everything like that, and it's just like, so Ozzy has something to shoot for once a year, you know what I mean, to keep his spirits up. And so I didn't think Oz was going to pass away 2 weeks after the gig. No, he seemed lumped up, but being that, because I'd seen him 2 years prior to that when his godson, our oldest boy, Jesse John Michael, he was named after Ozzy, John Michael. So he was at J-Man's wedding, him and his wife Rihanna. So Ozzy was at the wedding, because Ozzy was like, if I got a call, I'm making this wedding. So Oz and Mom came down to the wedding, and they were there hanging. And but Oz was walking with a cane at that point. He was still, he could still, he'd be like, Zakk, help me up or whatever. I'd get him up. But he could, if he wanted to go to the bathroom or he had something to do, but he was still walking with a cane. So, it was just like, just keep doing your therapy. And he'd be getting frustrated because he's just like, this sucks. I just want to get back to being normal again. It'd be like, if he was an athlete, and he had a knee injury, he just wants to get back so he can get back out on the field and start playing again. But I'd always text him just like, you guys just stay positive, man. He'd just be getting frustrated and pissed. But, so like when we saw him at the, Back to the Beginning, because Oz wasn't walking at that point. And so it was just, but I was just worried about his singing because we hadn't done a show in 6 years. So my concern was just to see if he'd have enough breath to do it, stamina. Because being in the studio, you could do one line at a time, take a little bit of a break, double the vocal, take a little break. You want to do another one? Yeah, let's do another one. And then get halfway through a song and it'd take, a little while. And then Oz would go, all right, let's call it a day or whatever. Let's go get something to eat. Because that's when you're in the studio. But like live, that's, once that train gets rolling, it's not stopping. So, so you got to be able to, can you do 8 songs without stopping? You know what I mean? And it's not even just one song without stopping, like a whole set, half a set, So, but when we did rehearsals, I was like, wow. He had stamina and he sounded strong. So I was like, thank the good Lord on that one. So, so we did that, and then, so for the show, I thought Oz did great. And then, so I just figured we'd take it from there. Well, when Vin was still with us, and Django, when Philip, Rex, and Vinny would, when that rumor was always floating around, it'd be like, Zakk, being at, me and Dime, you know what I mean? It's just kind of like, I always viewed it as like, if Mitch Mitchell and Noel Redding asked Eric Clapton after Jimmy had passed away, Eric, we want to celebrate Jimmy's life and everything and his greatness. Would you come out and sing and play Jimmy's stuff? Of course Eric Clapton would do it, you know what I mean? So I always viewed it as that. So, like with Rob Halford, when we were opening up for Judas Priest over in Mexico, and he came up and he was like, man, Zakk, it's a really beautiful thing you and Charlie are doing, honoring the guys. I said, thanks, Rob. And, it was just like, it was never a matter of when you'll, if you'll do it. It's a matter of when you'll do it. Like, if the guys ever want to do that, I was like, I love you guys. I'll always be there to support you and be there for you. So, and it just, to me, it's like when I do Experience Hendrix, seeing Eric Johnson playing every night, Kenny Wayne Shepherd, Eric Gales, all the fellas just crushing it every night and just honoring Jimmy. That's a beautiful thing. So, I view, whether it's Jake, me, Gus or Joe Holmes or Bernie Torme or Brad Gillis playing, we're all honoring Randy's greatness. So to me, it's the same thing when we do Pantera Celebration. We're celebrating, and you know, it's a beautiful thing that Phil says every night. It's like, Philip will go, how many people saw Pantera back in the day? You know, like back when, you know, when they were playing in a bar and grill with 5 people in it, you know what I mean? When they first started to all the mountains they covered. You know, so you have the Pantera faithful, and then Philip will say, how many people this is the first time hearing these songs live? It's like mind-blowing how many young kids that are there that are like, I only heard about the legend of Pantera through my dad or my uncle, you know, which is the truth, you know what I mean? Because a lot of kids were probably not even born. You know, they might be 20 years old, you know, 18 years old coming down to the gig. They weren't even born when Pantera went on hiatus. So to see that and just see how many people love, you know, it's a trip down memory lane for the faithful and for all the younger kids to just hear these great songs that the guys created and this community that they put together. That would be a bridge we cross if that ever came up or whatever, you know, with all Pantera releases, and it would just be like a song or two or whatever that, you know, that was floating around, I would suppose. But yeah, but I mean, everything's always up to Philip and Rex. So, you know, I mean, when the guys, we're so busy doing the shows, and if there's new songs that come into the set and us focusing on that and making sure the show is the best we can make the show.
Plans for more Pantera?
Well, I think originally with Rita and Philip and Rex, they were talking, you know, because they Dime, you know, if he had, let's say if it was Jimi Hendrix recorded it, you know, on a tape recorder, a Panasonic, just the idea of Purple Haze, and you know, just you had the whole thing that we know of it, but it was just, you know, just the idea. He was recording, then he had the lyrics, Purple Haze, all in my brain, you know, where he had it, and then Mitch and Noel, you know, had these tapes of these unfinished songs that Jimmy, you know, they're his song, they're all written, but they just weren't recorded properly. So, you know, there's Eric with his cream guitar tone playing
Got a lot
Purple
from Eric.
Haze, Wind Cries Mary, Manic Depression, you know what I mean, or Hey Joe or whatever, you know what I'm saying? But they were just, the ideas were all there that Dime wrote, whereas I'm not writing anything, I'm just covering what Dime wrote. You know, so I think, and you know, so I think that's what the conversation before. But you know, everything's always up to Philip and Rex. This is their house, and you know, me and Charlie are guests in the house, and we're their brothers just to support them. Well, the funny thing is, because it was SDMF, so the kids would always say it means some daddies may fart. You know, that's when they were real little. But yeah, but it's strength, determination, merciless forever. So yeah, because like there is no whining, there will be no complaining. There just, you know, because when you're too busy blasting through mountains, you don't have time to whine and complain and cry. It just doesn't exist. You know, when you've been married for 73 years, you don't have time to cry. You actually, it doesn't happen anymore. You know, so more time to complain or whine. You're just too busy blasting through mountains, climbing over them, going underneath them, and just blowing them up. So you know, you must conquer, destroy, then take a maybe 8-minute power nap, then repeat. I guess it would, and it depends, you know, I mean, it depends on when you take your buddy, put about 2 bottles of Crown Royal in them and a case of beer and spin them around. Comedy and shenanigans are bound to arise. But, no, but they were, both of them, it was just good times, man. I mean, it's just like, with Oz, whenever we'd always be drinking, it was nothing but comedy and hilarity, and the same thing with Dime. I mean, you know, Dime's, you know, both of them are, you know, such infectious, like their personalities are just life of the party kind of thing. You got the Mongoose on the bass, you got Kid Dynamite on guitar, vocals, dishes, laundry, and he makes an amazing chicken piccata. Okay. And JD on the bass over there and vocals, and he plays keyboards as well, but he also makes an amazing meatball and lasagna
wood
dish.
knocker tone now.
They're two of the Italian coalition, the Black Label. And then we got Jeffy Boy McGee over there, the fabulous Moolah. Jeff, the fabulous Moolah, fabulous on the drums. And Jeffy does everything too. He plays drums, he plays guitar, he does vocals. And Jeff makes an amazing shepherd's pie. And it's just absolutely delicious. But no, we started working on it actually, what was it, 2022, 23? So we started working on it, because usually when we do, get together for the big Black Label powwow, when we're going to do one of these records, the Bob will tell me, the Immortal Lover will be like, babe, the fellas are going to come out in about a month. So, I got a month to come up with ideas. So, it's just like you sit around, every day I have a couple of Odin 4s going in the gym where I got my little practice amp and just start coming up with riffs until you get something you like. But, and then when the fellas get out to the Black Vatican when we're going to record, the guys will be out there for about a week or so. So if you get any new ideas, and, I always tell everybody, once you start recording and it's just an implosion of ideas and you're getting inspired, you never know. Because, back in the old days, it was just, if you're going to go to the recording studio, you want to be, obviously if it's going to cost $1,000 a day in the studio, you want to get in and out and try and get as much done as we can so everybody knows the songs. But like the other side of the coin on that is, like when Sabbath was doing the second album, when they were doing Paranoid, they ran out of, they didn't have enough time for the record. So it was like, you guys got one more song? We need 5 more minutes. And it's like, we got nothing. We just recorded everything we wrote. And I was like, well, can you come up with one more thing? Maybe, just to fill the record out. And so they had nothing. And it was like, all right, well, how about, I'm asking you 3 guys if you can come up with something, and you're like, I'll go make a coffee run, or I'll go get us some food, see what you guys can just noodle around and see what you can come up with. And next thing you know, Tony came up with that riff, and the whole band came in, and then Ozzy sang the melody, Geezer wrote the lyrics, Bill crushed it on the drums, and that became their #1 single, and their iconic, the show closer. So what I'm just saying is, if you start getting inspired, all I'm going to do if I'm working on a record is just press record. Because you might come up with your best songs that these songs didn't even exist until we got to the studio and you're jamming on something. I'm like, what was that? And you're like, oh, I'm going to call it Knocking on Heaven's Door. Or whatever. I go, you got to record that. That's really good. When'd you write that? You're like, I just wrote it about like 10 minutes ago. I was just noodling on the guitar. I said, let's use that. So that's what I'm saying. If you get inspired, you can't stop that. Like, back in the day, you'd record and everybody had to know the songs or whatever, but it's just like, now I'll just write the song, because usually when I write from the beginning, the middle, the end. I'll just write it all in one shot when I'm sitting down. So now we'll just go in the Vatican, and then Adam Fuller, who Adam makes the records with us, engineering and everything like that, I'll just put it up to a click track, and it's just like any of the Name and Blood. I'll start it with the intro, and then we'll go here, then I'll start with the main riff or whatever. And then, this will be the chorus, then this will be the bridge, the breakdown for this. So it's all on a click track. And then I'll double the guitar, so it's basically finished. So when the fellas come out, so Jeff, it's basically all, drawn, but when the fellas come out, they could see it and go, all right, we'll just color it in. So it's all done. So like Jeff will just, the Fabulous Moolah will just listen to it. He'll go, all right, Zaggy, when are we coming in? I go, let's just all come in together. You know, you don't even need a drum fill. Let's just come in together. And Jeff will go, all right, cool. And he's like, what's this part here? It's just a breakdown before the solo? Yeah, breakdown before the solo. Bam, bam, and then maybe put a fill or something. And he's like, all right, well, Jeff will listen to it like 2 or 3 times and go, all right, and then we'll just end right here. Okay, good. Jeff will go in, he'll play it. He'll probably, a lot of times he'll just play it, blast right through it, first take. And if there's something that he doesn't like, we'll just fly him in when he wants to come in. When he gets right before the solo, punch me back in. You know, so that's how, and then after that's done, Jeff's like, all right, next song. Yeah, without a doubt, I can get an idea when like something like Name of Blood, you know, I'll start. Usually the riffs are always, it inspires you to sing something over it, you know. And then for me, lyrics are always last. Once I figure out what I want to sing about, and I'll either sit in the truck and just crank it and sit there and think. But once I figure out what I want to sing about, then the lyrics will just come out. Well, that's why I'm in a Zakk Sabbath cover band, by the way. So when we were doing our wedding band, I would always end up being the guy doing the Ozzy vocals, you know, with the Sabbath stuff. So we were like, all right, so let's just. Then when we started the Zakk Sabbath band, but no, I mean the funny thing is, you know, like if any of our friends could emulate any of our favorite bands, you know, if you could do all the Robert Plant stuff, you know, because you got the higher voice. Then with the Zeppelin stuff, you'll sing all that. JD's got a lower voice, so when we do the Doors or Lou Rawls, JD can sing that. You know, you'll never find, you know, because JD can do all the Lou Rawls stuff and Jim Morrison. So, you know, so like us in our wedding band, everybody picks whatever voices they can, you know, mimic the best. You do your best Rich Little on, you know what I mean? So, yes, we have our wedding band as well. Zakk Sabbath is a wedding band. Yes, and that's what we all do. We also, you know, we play anything, you know what I mean? It's just like, you know, circumcision parties, we're there. Well, I mean, the undisputed heavyweight champs of all time, and to this day, just musically and the impact and the explosion and how they changed it, it's the Beatles, hands down. For any musician, it's the Beatles are hands down heavyweight champs. Songwriting and production and everything. There's trickle down of that, and the shadow that they cast is just so immense. It's just like you could hear it in Zeppelin, you could hear it in Sabbath, I could hear it in the Stones. You could hear, you know, it's just so Goliath. It's unbelievable. So as far as that goes, but if I had to go desert island, I would go with the Stones. You know, I mean, I'm just saying over the Stones Beatles argument. I mean, I love Wings. I love Paul McCartney, and I love everything about the Beatles. I mean, if you're a musician, you know, Ringo's songs are amazing. And then when he did his solo career, and then, you know, George Harrison's guitar playing, you know it instantly. And then all the John Lennon stuff. Because we were even talking about, I wonder how the Beatles would have done in the 70s. You know what I mean? Because, you know, certain eras are just like not kind to, or they never went through it. Like how they would have fared. You know, like how would Zeppelin have fared through the 80s? You know what I mean? I'm just saying certain bands where you go, how would the, you know, because the landscape of everything changing. So, but look at the Beatles. You would have had all those Wings songs, would have been Beatles songs. All John Lennon, Imagine, everything like that would have been all Beatles songs. All George Harrison songs would have been Ringo's It Don't Come Easy. All that would have been, they would have all been Beatles songs. So I think the Beatles still would have just been crushing it through the 70s. But
Desert Island is the Stones.
but if it was, no, the Beatles argument, you know, Beatles Stones versus Stones, I would go, you know, like I love the Stones. So, you know, it would just be, I would have to go with the Stones. If it, you know, your Desert Island and your record, but I mean the Beatles are the heavyweight champs of all time, hands down. Well, I always tell everybody, it's just like, you know, like it always starts with riffs, right? And you know, so for me, Mount Riffmore, you got Lord Iommi, the Pontiff, you know, Pope Page over there, and you got the Dark Knight over there, Richie Blackmore. So you know, with Mount Riffmore over there, so between Smoke on the Water, Into the Void, and Whole Lotta Love, like, I'm just saying, that's a template on, you know, it's like the Henry Ford template on how to build a car.
Totally detuned. That's neat.
Sweetwater here, and I'm today.
Why?
I have the pleasure.
Why? How? When? That's all I gotta say. Let's do this, Father Nick.
This man, the busiest man on the planet, when he's not doing BLS, he's doing the Pantera Celebration, he's doing the Hendrix deal, and then right now he's doing Zakk Sabbath. They have an album out right now. This
Yes,
thing
I've
here.
got a lot of unpaid bills from the early Black Label years. Some bar tabs that need to be paid. And I won't stop touring until I got at least another 75 years of touring to cover that bill.
Because after this, you're going back to Pantera Celebration, then you're back in Europe with Zakk
Yes,
Sabbath.
we're doing the Pantera Celebration. Then right after that, Paul Abdul comes in. We work on some new moves, and we do Zakk Sabbath.
There you have it. No Rest for the Wicked. Good name for an album. So we figured what we do. It's impossible to do this. You can't pick your 5 favorite Sabbath songs. You can't, or riffs. You can't even choose 50 because there's so many. So we're just going to pick.
This is very true. I have the same problem whether it's Taylor Swift, Justin Bieber, any of them, or early Gaga. But go ahead.
Early Gaga. Yeah, that's hard as well. That's really hard. So he's just going to come up with 5 that he likes today. He'll play one, then I'll play one I like today. And within 5 minutes, it will be different. But what's your first riff then?
Obviously, NIB, one of the classics. So, I mean, you got, but it is so funny, even with Oz, he goes, oh yeah, it's like, dun, 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 dun. You get inspired by things, and you twist, crinkle, bend stuff, and then it turns into something else, you know what I mean? Whereas, like, if you told me, I was like, Nick, I go, that song, that riff's really cool, and he goes, Zakk, I got it from listening to this. And I'm like, wow, I would have never got that if you didn't tell me. You know what I mean? The great thing about Oz, a lot of times it would be, like, NIB, some people say, my love can, sometimes you would follow the riff.
Right, and other times not.
And other times it's just like, or hold the note over the riff.
Right.
You know, like a longer note. I mean, he truly is just a king of the melodies though, man. I mean, you know, whether it's his love for the Beatles and everything like that, but, I mean, the combination of, you know, Tony's riffs and Bill's drumming and Geezer's lyrics and the bass playing, and I mean, all 4 of them together, just,
It's the magic.
it really truly is.
The sum is greater than the
Yeah,
usual
because
parts.
they're all bringing something special to the table.
So let's hear the riff, my friend. Play it.
Yeah, just to show everybody, for anybody learning how to play guitar, it's in we're in E right here. You can do it that way.
Gotcha.
You know, when you're bringing in the St. Ted Green chording versions, you know. So you're getting the low, or you're getting the yellow. And what's interesting on that is Lord, I only playing the B as opposed to the You know what I mean? I always thought even that when I was like 15 years old learning it. But yeah, definitely.
It's cocaine,
cool
Clapton.
You figure, you're playing A, but
C
Gives it
sharp.
a twist.
totally.
The first riff I ever wrote was Paranoid, but the riff that got me wanting to play guitar was what my friends called the fuzz riff in Sabbath Bloody Sabbath.
Of course.
The cool thing about it is, once I learnt he was tuned down to C sharp, and he was doing it back in, everyone thinks it's a new thing, he's tuning down for, he was doing it in 72. Way back when. And the riff is gorgeous, like you said, simple but effective. And the thing I learned from it is I always thought the major third would be too happy, but the way he uses it in this is evil, just evil. So the riff goes like this. Root, minor third, second, and then every other time it goes up to the major third. So that's my number one. What's your number two, good sir?
Obviously, Under the Sun. I'm trying to figure that out. I mean, if you're learning your normal scales, you know, whether you're doing vowel patterns or, you know, just... The way it's sounding is, it's just the pattern keeps repeating. Right. And so you would figure, it's just going to continue on. And then I'm trying to figure out whether it's harmonic minor. You know what I mean? So it would be interesting to ask, I don't know how you ended up writing that, just coming about it, doing scale kind of just like, no, it just sounded right to me. You know what I mean? I noticed that actually with a lot of St. Diane stuff as well. Ted Green, the chord versions. You'll see that in chord chemistry on about page 528. But anyway, yeah, Under the Sun is definitely amazing.
My next one is one I had the honor of playing with you at Wembley at Marshall's 50th anniversary, Into the Void, which I know is in your set.
Yes. We'll be playing that, we'll be dancing to that one tonight.
And even though I love the main riff, the one that... The one under the soul. Sorry, that was a bit of plagiarism of Mr. Page, Lord Page
it's just the band drops out in the lick.
But it goes back to what you were saying, just the glorious simplicity that works.
And once again, the pentatonic, the most lyrical of all the scales.
Yeah, go figure, right?
You're singing pentatonic, you don't sing in normal scales, but I mean, even down at my writing with Black Label, it's just, suicide and sour enemies. usually on one string or two strings. It's just different combinations and mixing them up and changing them around, and then you got a whole new lick or a whole new riff.
What's the number 3, my friend?
I've always liked, Honey Roll Sleep, or, But I just always think that's great. It's just, you're playing a normal bar chord.
Just clever stuff, man.
Yeah, without a doubt.
That's why he is Lord of Army and we're not.
Without a doubt.
Changing my guitar to this next one by Digital Magic. Using the fine ZW overdrive to beat It's extremely good.
If you don't have capers, you use that. Your chicken potato. Carry on. What do we got, Father Mike?
So this is another one that's in the set today, which is Warping.
Yes.
Like I love Luke's War, but I go back to it once again. It comes back to simplicity, and there's that riff that just kills me every time I hear me play it badly or someone like you play it really well, which is the one that goes. The
cool thing about this, and we don't have once again going back to the St. Ted Green chord voices, and there's like a really cool music. What you got? Once you start learning all these different chord versions, it's like, oh wow, that's cool. You could do, and obviously they're all different flavors. Obviously that's going to be more top end because you got the high That's on chord chemistry on page 423. You should take a look at this. This is great. Ted Green already beat me to this.
I'm using 2 fingers. This guy's way better than me, so he's using more than 2 fingers and playing it, and you're playing it differently. It sounds
That's the awesome thing about different chord The flavor.
What's your next major soup? Number 4 for you.
Oh, well, we also do, of course.
Sorry. Thanks for listening. Peace. I'm going to start going live. I've been not well enough to do it. Too many mistakes and tripping over everything. It's getting easier, though. Thanks everybody for your prayers. Everybody from Van Dykes and Cunningham and all the good guys. Thank you, everyone.
Another cool thing. I mean,